Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Caravan of 6,000 migrants marching towards U.S. border. Outgoing Silicon Valley lawmaker says big tech needs immigration reform. Kakwa line, is catalog of spring classes at Oahu parks posted yet? A thriving border town undercuts South Africa's anti-immigrant mood. Hong Kongers staying home for Christmas holiday beat the chill with snake soup. Caravan of 6,000 migrants marching towards U.S. border. The Sydney Morning Herald. A large caravan of migrants from Central America, Venezuela, Cuba, and other countries is heading towards the U.S. border through Mexico. The procession, which consists of around 6,000 people, is the largest in over a year and highlights the failure of joint efforts by the Biden administration and President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's government to deter migration. The surge in migrants is disrupting bilateral trade and stoking anti-migrant sentiment among conservative voters in the U.S. The U.S. delegation, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, will meet with the Mexican president to discuss the issue. Outgoing Silicon Valley lawmaker says big tech needs immigration reform. Yahoo! Outgoing California Representative Anna Eshoo has expressed regret over the lack of immigration reform in the U.S. Eshoo, whose district covers Silicon Valley, highlighted the importance of immigrants to the technology industry and the need for them to be able to stay in the U.S. after completing their education. She also expressed regret over the wording of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which she said protected websites from liability for user-generated content. Eshoo announced last month that she will not seek re-election in 2024. Kakwa line, is catalog of spring classes at Oahu parks posted yet? Yahoo! The Honolulu Department of Parks and Recreation's spring catalog for educational, recreational, and social programs is posted at pros.hnl.info, according to a news release. Registration for spring programs will take place online from January 5 to 12, and payments must be made by Visa or MasterCard credit or debit card. In-person registration is also available at certain park locations. The spring catalog includes a wide range of classes and activities for children and adults, including sports, arts and crafts, hula, ukulele, and social activities for older adults. A thriving border town undercuts South Africa's anti-immigrant mood. New York Times. South Africa is proposing the most significant change to its immigration laws since the end of apartheid in 1994. The government says the reforms are necessary to deal with the increase in undocumented migration, which is said to have exacerbated many of the country's social and economic problems. However, some South Africans are critical of the plans, and of a broader crackdown on migrants, arguing that the country benefits economically from the presence of immigrants. For example, a study by the World Bank found that one immigrant worker contributes 2 jobs for South Africans. Another study by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development found that immigrants contribute 9% of the country's GDP. One South African shop owner in the border town of Messina said he and other entrepreneurs rely on migrant customers, and that without them Messina would become a ghost town. While there are concerns about an increase in crime, a survey last year showed that 69% of South Africans believed that immigrants were responsible for this. Hong Kongers staying home for Christmas holiday beat the chill with snake soup. South China Morning Post. Hong Kongers lined up for warm bowls of snake soup in Sham Shui Pe and hunted for bargains at a products expo in Victoria Park on Christmas Eve, despite the chilly weather. Immigration figures showed there was a net outflow of 517,606 trips on Friday and Saturday as people traveled across the border and overseas for the festive break. The cold spell in Hong Kong entered its 6th day on Sunday, with temperatures falling to 2.9 degrees Celsius in some areas of the new territories. A fiction, the fall of a fintech star accused of massive fraud. Financial Times. Nigerian fintech firm Tingo Group has been accused of committing a massive fraud by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. The agency claims that founder Dozie Mababusi inflated the profits of 3 companies by forging documents in order to defraud investors. The SEC halted trading in Tingo Group and agri-fintech securities in November as a result of inaccuracies found in their disclosures. In June, US-based short seller Hindenburg Research described Tingo Group as an exceptionally obvious scam. The SEC has now filed a complaint against Tingo, alleging that the firm's purported assets, revenues, expenses, customers and suppliers are virtually entirely fabricated. The regulator has called the scale of the fraud staggering. Mababusi has stepped down as CEO and board member of Tingo in the wake of the allegations. Moneris reports intermittent network slowness day after network outage. The Globe and Mail. Payments processing company Moneris is experiencing intermittent network slowness, one day after a network outage affected customers' ability to process transactions. Moneris has stated that all systems are operational, but the network slowness may affect transactions. It is unclear how payments may be affected. Reports of issues from Interac and Visa users began after 2 p.m. and subsided about an hour later. Moneris is a joint venture between Royal Bank of Canada and the Bank of Montreal. Police announce rearrest of Oklahoma County Jail detainee after mistaken release. Yahoo! Oklahoma City Police said they rearrested Pedro Rodriguez Hernandez, who had been mistakenly released from jail. Police had arrested Hernandez on December 13 on charges of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. They found weapons and gun suppressors in his home. Law enforcement agencies in the area have been plagued by recent erroneous releases from the Oklahoma County Jail. Rishi Sunak must get handle on abuse of spousal visas, says former minister. Telegraph. The number of spouse visas issued by the UK's Home Office has more than doubled in the past year, prompting concerns that the system is being exploited to facilitate arranged marriages involving young women from India and Pakistan. Former Home Office Minister Sarah Dines has warned that increasing numbers of young women from the Indian subcontinent are becoming victims of domestic abuse as a result of the inadequate safeguards in place. The revelations come amid controversy over the Prime Minister's decision to backtrack on plans to raise the minimum salary threshold for bringing a partner to the UK. Prune the tree, halting new colleges considered amid student visa crackdown. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Australian government is considering a moratorium on new colleges in an attempt to reduce migration. The government is also looking at measures to prevent the exploitation of vulnerable students, such as beefing up the regulator to weed out unscrupulous providers. The government's plan to have net overseas migration by June 2025 involves reducing the intake of international students, who will now face stricter English language tests and have to prove they are genuine students before entering the country. The government hopes to eliminate ghost colleges that offer fake courses to exploit student visa holders. A Christmas tale from long ago, Santa Claus was black. Bloomberg. The origins of Santa Claus have long been associated with New York City. While the character has evolved over time, it is believed that the first known written reference to Santa Claus appeared in the New York Gazette in 1773. However, the true origins of the character remain unclear, and there is evidence to suggest that Santa Claus may have originally been depicted as a black man. In the early 1800s, there were mentions of a black Santa Claus in New York newspapers. The name Claus was commonly associated with black men, and there were accounts of black New Yorkers working as chimney sweeps and engaging in festive activities for children. The Dutch influence in New York during this time also included the tradition of Sinterklaas, which featured black assistant figures. While the specific origins of Santa Claus as a black man in New York are uncertain, there is evidence to suggest that such a character may have existed. The commercialization of Christmas and the changing demographics of New York likely led to the eventual disappearance of the black Santa Claus figure. However, in the early 1900s, black Americans began to reclaim the character, organizing Black Santa events and embracing the representation of a black Santa Claus. In conclusion, the true origins of Santa Claus remain murky, but there is evidence to suggest that the character may have originated as a black man in New York City. While the character has evolved over time, the association with New York City remains strong. The story of Black Santa Claus serves as a reminder of the diversity and complexity of the Christmas tradition. Trump now claims he knows nothing about Hitler. The Independent. Donald Trump has claimed that he knows nothing about Adolf Hitler after being accused of making comments that echo the Nazi leader. Trump said in a radio interview that he is not a student of Hitler and has never read his works. The former president has been accused of using Hitler's playbook for phrases such as poisoning the blood of the country. A resurfaced 1990 Vanity Fair interview with Trump's first wife, Ivana, details that he kept a book of Hitler's speeches in a cabinet by his bed. Journalists rebut claims of Russian citizenship for top Ukrainian judge Inatov. Yahoo! The head of Ukraine's Higher Qualification Commission of Judges, Roman Inatov, does not possess a Russian passport, according to investigative journalism project Schemes. The inquiry dispelled rumors that Inatov held Russian citizenship, revealing that he only held an old Soviet passport. Despite this, Ukrainian news outlet ZN.UA reported that Ukraine's security service had sent a letter to the commission asserting that Inatov did hold Russian citizenship. Inatov denied these allegations and requested increased security measures. Working in legal cannabis is getting immigrants denied citizenship. Yahoo! As an immigrant, Maria Reimers tried to do everything by the book. She entered the U.S. legally, married an American citizen, and secured a green card to work. Together, she and her husband managed to open a small storefront in Ephrata, a dot of a town in Washington state. But when Reimers tried to become a U.S. citizen in 2017, she was denied for lack of good moral character. Federal immigration officials deemed her work illicit drug trafficking because the couple's business in Ephrata sells state-regulated cannabis. Though it is legal in Washington state, their retail shop has put Reimers' dream of citizenship in jeopardy. She gets to keep her green card, but her attorney recommended that she not visit her family in El Salvador because of the possibility that she'd be detained at the border when she returned. For one young reporter in a new city, Christmas meant making a stranger feel at home. The Toronto Star. The Toronto Star newspaper is asking its readers to donate to the Santa Claus Fund, which provides gift boxes for children in need across the Greater Toronto Area. The fund has been running for over a century and aims to remind children that they are loved and cherished. The newspaper is calling on readers to make a small gesture that can have a lasting impact on a child's life. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the six-dimensional world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Today's headlines cover a wide range of topics, from the migrant caravan heading towards the U.S. border, to the need for immigration reform in Silicon Valley, to discussions about spouse visas in the UK. But first, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Six, the master of observation and the purveyor of wit and wisdom. Now, let's dive into the news. The caravan of migrants heading towards the U.S. border is causing quite a stir. With around 6,000 people making the journey, it highlights the challenges that the Biden administration and the Mexican government face in deterring migration. This influx of migrants is not only disrupting bilateral trade but also stoking anti-migrant sentiment among conservative voters in the U.S. It's a complex issue that requires careful consideration and collaboration between the two countries. Meanwhile, outgoing California Representative Anna Eshoo has expressed her regret over the lack of immigration reform in the U.S., particularly in Silicon Valley. She recognizes the importance of immigrants to the technology industry and the need for them to be able to stay in the country after completing their education. It's a sentiment that many in Silicon Valley share, as immigrants have long played a vital role in the region's success. In South Africa, proposed changes to immigration laws are sparking debate. While the government argues that the reforms are necessary to address undocumented migration and its impact on social and economic problems, some South Africans believe that immigrants contribute to the country's economy. Studies have shown that immigrants create jobs and contribute to GDP. It's a complex issue that requires a balanced approach. Closer to home, Hong Kongers are braving the chilly weather to enjoy some snake soup and hunt for bargains during the Christmas holiday. Despite the cold spell and a net outflow of trips from the city, people are still finding ways to celebrate the festive season. It's a testament to the resilience and determination of the people of Hong Kong. In the world of finance, a Nigerian fintech firm, Tingo Group, is facing allegations of massive fraud. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission claims that the founder of the company inflated profits and fabricated documents to defraud investors. It's a stark reminder of the importance of transparency and accountability in the financial industry. On the technology front, payments processing company Moneris experienced a network outage that affected customers' ability to process transactions. While the company has stated that all systems are now operational, intermittent network slowness may still affect transactions. It's a frustrating situation for both businesses and consumers, highlighting the need for reliable and efficient payment systems. And finally, in the spirit of the holiday season, the Toronto Star is calling on its readers to donate to the Santa Claus Fund, which provides gift boxes for children in need. It's a small gesture that can have a lasting impact on a child's life, reminding them that they are loved and cherished. This heartwarming initiative is a reminder of the power of compassion and generosity. And that's a wrap on today's news. As always, I encourage you, my esteemed audience, to share your thoughts and perspectives on these stories. What do you make of the migrant caravan heading towards the U.S. border? How do you feel about the need for immigration reform in Silicon Valley? And what are your thoughts on the proposed changes to immigration laws in South Africa? I eagerly await your insights and questions. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.